There's something you need to recognize about the seasons right before a breakthrough. They rarely feel like blessings. In fact, they often feel like the exact opposite. When resistance starts to intensify in your life, when it seems as though the weight on your shoulders is heavier than ever, when people misunderstand you, doors close in your face, and the battles multiply, that's often the surest sign that something is about to shift. It is the darkest part of the night that comes just before the sunrise, and this principle is not just poetic, it is profoundly spiritual. Think about it. Before Israel could enter the promised land, they faced fortified walls and giants. Before David wore a crown, he was hunted by Saul through caves and deserts. Before Jesus stepped out in resurrection glory, he walked through the agony of the cross. Resistance always precedes release. The enemy doesn't waste his energy on people going nowhere. If you feel targeted, if you feel pressed on every side, if your life seems harder after you took a step of obedience, it may not be punishment. It may be confirmation that you're on the verge of stepping into destiny. Psychologically, we know that growth always requires resistance. Muscles don't develop without weight. Endurance isn't built without strain, and character doesn't deepen without testing. Spiritually, the same principle holds true. God allows resistance not to destroy us, but to prepare us. The walls you are hitting are not barriers meant to stop you. They are pressure points designed to strengthen you for what's next. If you entered your breakthrough without opposition, you wouldn't have the roots to sustain it. Opposition is heaven's way of making sure you're not just ready to receive, but ready to remain. Now here's the paradox, that many miss the very increase in resistance is often the clearest sign that breakthrough is near. The enemy doesn't fight hardest at the beginning of your journey. He fights hardest when you're closest to the finish line. The closer you are to birth, the more intense the labor pains become. A mother doesn't despair when contractions grow stronger. She knows the baby is about to arrive. In the same way, you shouldn't interpret the increase of resistance as a sign to quit. You should interpret it as a signal to press through. But here's the challenge. In the moment, resistance doesn't feel like progress. It feels like failure, like rejection, like everything is going wrong. And this is why discernment is critical. You need to be able to step back and ask yourself, is this resistance proof that I'm on the wrong path? Or is it proof that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be? More often than not, if you've been walking in obedience to God, the resistance is not a red light. It's a sign that breakthrough is on the horizon. The great danger is that many people give up right before their moment arrives. They misinterpret the resistance. They assume the presence of struggle means the absence of God, when in fact it may be the very evidence of His hand at work. How many dreams have been abandoned? How many marriages dissolved? How many callings left unfulfilled simply because someone quit in the season of labor pains? They didn't realize that the pain was proof that new life was near. Let me remind you, if God has spoken something over your life, His word cannot return void. Resistance cannot cancel His promise. It can only refine you for it. That job that rejected you, that door that closed, that friendship that ended, none of those things can keep you from what God has ordained. In fact, sometimes resistance is God's way of pruning distractions, shaking loose the things that cannot carry into the next season, and proving to you that His strength is greater than your struggle. So instead of despising resistance, learn to reinterpret it. Ask yourself, what is God building in me through this? What capacity is He stretching? What endurance is He growing? Because when you begin to see resistance as preparation, it loses its power to discourage you. Suddenly, the opposition that once made you want to quit becomes the very sign that convinces you to keep going. If you are in that place right now, pressed, stretched, exhausted, I want you to know that you are not far from breakthrough. The enemy would not be attacking so violently if you weren't on the edge of something significant. He fears what you are about to step into. That is why the pressure has increased. But God is greater than the pressure, and His promise is stronger than the resistance. And so the question is not whether you will face resistance. The question is whether you will endure it, because if you endure it, if you press through it, you will discover that what felt like opposition was actually confirmation. What felt like warfare was actually the labor that brings forth new life. So don't give up in the midnight hour. Don't mistake the pain for the end. It may very well be the beginning of something extraordinary. The resistance you're facing today is the announcement that your breakthrough is on the way. Closing statement. If you see the resistance rising, don't run from it. Lean into it, because that very pressure may be the proof that you are closer to your breakthrough than you've ever been. Hold fast, stay faithful, and don't let go. Your sunrise is nearer than it feels. Another unmistakable sign that your breakthrough is coming is the sudden shift in your relationships and environment. Very often, just before God brings you into a new season, He begins to rearrange the people and circumstances around you. Sometimes this feels disorienting, even painful, because doors that once opened easily now begin to close. People who once seemed supportive begin to drift away or even oppose you. Opportunities you thought were secure suddenly fall apart. And if you're not discerning, you may interpret these changes as rejection, as failure, or as abandonment. But in reality, they are divine adjustments. They are part of God's process to position you where you need to be, with the right people and at the right time. Think about the story of Joseph. Before he stepped into the palace, before he became second in command in Egypt, he was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and falsely accused. To the natural eye, those changes look like disaster, but each shift was orchestrated by the hand of God to move him closer to his destiny. The pit positioned him for Potiphar's house. Potiphar's house prepared him for the prison, and the prison positioned him for the palace. Every closed door was really an opening into a larger one. The relational shifts, the betrayals, the disappointments, none of them were random. They were necessary steps in the journey toward breakthrough. This is where spiritual maturity is critical. You have to learn to see beyond the surface of your circumstances. Not everyone who leaves your life is meant to go where you are going. Not every opportunity you lose was designed to be part of your future. And sometimes God has to close doors you wouldn't close yourself. He has to shift relationships you wouldn't dare to touch because He knows what's on the other side. If He let certain people or circumstances stay attached to you, they would sabotage the very breakthrough you've been praying for. Philosophically, this points us toward the nature of transformation itself. Every transition requires a letting go. You cannot step into the new while clinging to the old. There is always a cost, always a shedding, always a surrender involved in true breakthrough. And most of us resist this because the familiar, even when it's dysfunctional, feels safer than the unknown. But God is more concerned with your future than with your comfort. And so He allows shifts, He allows endings, He allows certain relationships to wither because He knows that you can't carry dead weight into your destiny. Psychologically, this can be one of the hardest things to accept. Human beings crave stability. We want to know who's with us, where we're going, and what the next step will be. But breakthroughs don't come on the timetable of human predictability. They often arrive in the middle of disorder. The people who once defined your support system may not be the ones cheering for you when the new season begins. And the very thing that feels like loss may be the soil of your greatest gain. That's why discernment is everything. You need to ask yourself, is this shift happening because I've been negligent, or is it happening because God is moving me? And when you've been walking in obedience, when you know in your heart you've been seeking God, you can trust that the changes are not accidents. They are realignments. They are heaven's way of positioning you where His blessing can find you. One of the greatest mistakes people make is trying to cling to relationships or environments that God is trying to move them away from. They keep fighting to reopen doors that God Himself has closed. They chase after people who were never meant to walk with them into the next season. And in doing so, they delay their own breakthrough. Because breakthrough is not just about what God is bringing to you, it's also about what He is removing from you. It's as much about subtraction as it is about addition. So when you notice these shifts happening, when people suddenly step back, when opportunities collapse, when environments change, you must learn not to panic. Instead, ask God, what are you positioning me for? Because 9 times out of 10, those shifts are evidence that the ground beneath you is moving because something new is about to spring forth. And let's be honest, breakthroughs rarely come wrapped in comfort. They are almost always preceded by disruption. Just like a seed has to break before it can grow, your environment has to shake before you can step into new life. The cracking, the shifting, the closing doors, those aren't signs of God's absence. They are signs of His nearness, signs that He's preparing you for something greater than you can currently see. If you find yourself in that place right now, where things feel unstable and relationships are changing, take heart. Don't interpret instability as defeat. Interpret it as transition. Don't mistake endings for failure. See them as the hand of God clearing the path for your future. Every shift, every realignment, every unexpected change may be heaven's way of saying, get ready, something is about to be born. So I'll leave you with this. When God begins to move things around you, don't resist the shift, trust it. Because the very instability that feels uncomfortable today may be the evidence that your breakthrough is closer than you think. Closing statement. The shaking you feel is not meant to break you, it's meant to position you. Embrace the shift, let go of what God is removing, and trust that on the other side of the disruption lies the breakthrough you've been waiting for.